Tell me about yourself.
So I was born and raised here in Springfield. Grew up attending Wonder Grade, Cherokee, and Kickapoo. Did my undergraduate work at Missouri State University, where I met my wife Teresa. We moved out to Nashville, Tennessee for me to do grad school at Vanderbilt University, and then moved back to Springfield because this is where we wanted to start a family. So we have two sons now. They're both also in SPS. And I get to work at Ozarks Technical Community College in education, helping do research to drive the decisions we're making to best serve students and communities. That's an incredibly rewarding job, being able to help students, especially a lot of first-generation students, connect with a degree and skills that gets them into a great job. That's transformative for them. It's transformative for their families, and being able to be a small part of a big team working towards those outcomes is really rewarding for my job. So I've been serving on council since 2018. There was a vacancy that came up in spring of 2018 that I decided to apply for because I love this community. I want my kids and everyone else in their generation to grow up to love it as much or more than I do. And I think the way you do that is by doing what you can to give back to the community around you. So I saw this as a chance to give back, a chance to bring kind of my data-informed approach to the conversations. And so applied, was fortunate to be selected, and then was elected in April of 2019 and April of 2021 to continue serving. And I'm running for re-election one more time here in April 2025.
So a question that I have is, you've been doing this for about 8 years now, and obviously you've had some opponents. You have an opponent this cycle around, and there are some people on social media kind of clamoring for maybe a fresh voice or something something of that sort. What would you say in the past 8 years that has prepared you for this election cycle, and what would you do differently or continue doing compared to the previous 7 years?
I think that you're always learning kind of from the experiences you have, and I've always been of the approach that you can always improve. How you're doing, you can improve your work, and you do that by trying your best, by looking at how things went, and by taking lessons from that you use to then improve your future approaches. I think during my time on council, you have a learning curve on council. We deal with such a wide variety of different things, everything, people like to joke at the city, we have everything from the airport to Z, the zoo, but we really do have so many different kinds of services that are important services for the citizens of Springfield. And it's not possible for any one of us as volunteers to be an expert on all of those issues that we're dealing with. But what you can do, and what I have always done, is learn as much as you can about the issues, and then seek out feedback. Talk to people who are experts in the field, develop those relationships, listen to all the feedback we get from the community, and make sure that we're using that when we're making our decisions. And so, during my time on council, I've spent all that time building those relationships to where when we have something come up, when we have an issue come up, I've got a great set of local experts and local residents I can go and talk to get feedback, to try to make sure that I'm making the best possible decision for the community, and not the decision that's driven by my personal preferences or my personal interest. And so that, I think, is one of the things out of my experience that is most valuable kind of moving forward, is just having gone through those learning curves and having that relationship network, as well as kind of the knowledge base to be able to look at what do we want to accomplish as a community with any of these variety of different issues, and then get the evidence to make the best decision to accomplish that shared community goal.
Is that why you want to be on council for the next 2 years? Is it to continue building? Is there something you're working on that you want to see through? Why do you want to be on council again?
So there are several kind of key things driving me to run for re-election, and it was a difficult decision. It is something that council takes a lot of time. It's an unpaid position. It can be a position where you're making, very challenging decisions, and in politics, unfortunately, there's some element of negativity, I think, in all levels of politics. But at the same time, with all those challenges and with the time away from family, you still have the chance at the end of every day to make a difference for those around you and make a difference for the community that we live in and that we love. And so for me, it's weighing that time spent on investing in the future of our community for my kids and for other kids versus more time spent in the present. And the reason I decided to run for re-election and continue spending that time, a few big things, and I have another learning experience related to the last question is, I don't like leaving things unfinished, and I always like having a list of things to be working on. I've also learned through the council experience that generally speaking, once you cross one thing off the list, several new things pop up on the bottom. So I've come to accept that you're never going to be able to accomplish everything that you want because there's always more that you can accomplish. But some of the big things on my list that I'd like to make sure that we see through, first is the Spring Forward tax initiative that was passed by voters in November of last year, and that I was heavily involved in the work to bring that to voters, including serving as the council liaison to the Citizens Commission on Community Investment. And that is something that it was a no increase tax, but it was a restructuring of that existing tax to be able to create a permanent funding stream for our police and fire departments and our public safety efforts that will allow us to make sure we're an employer of choice and work towards full staffing for police, which is absolutely essential to our community, as well as finishing out the obligation to our police fire pension plan. I also serve as the council liaison to the police fire pension board, and we've been able to get it from nearly being insolvent back in 2009 to well over 90% funded today, and we're going to be able to finish that out with that permanent portion of the November tax. The other portion of the November tax, the half cent that's with the 10-year sunset, the Citizens Commission that recommended that created, I think, a great structure of aligning that money with our Forward SGF projects and priorities. And I think Forward SGF is a fantastic plan for our community. It's one that we had a tremendous level of community input in. It really represents kind of the collective vision and dreams for what we want to be in the future. And we've had good plans in the past in Springfield, but we never had a dedicated funding stream tied towards them. We do now. And we made a clear promise to the voters as far as how that money is going to be used to benefit those of us who live here on things that are going to be transformative, are going to make a positive difference in their lives, are going to help create more jobs, are going to help make sure that people are able to have home ownership as an option. All of those goals that are found in Forward SGF. But for that to work, we need to deliver on those promises. And so having been a part of the work to create that, I think it was really important for me to see that through and see it implemented. That extends also, I think, to our work on public safety. That's been a priority of mine over the last several years. We've done a lot in terms of increasing salary for recruitment and retention. The ARPA committee that I co-chaired, or that I chaired, our first step there was creating a retention program with ARPA funds for our first responders. We've been able to make changes and improvements to the pension plan to keep experienced officers here longer. We've created and implemented a recruitment plan. We're seeing progress. We're going to be able to see that progress accelerate with the permanent funding, and I would like to make sure that we get to full staffing because that is our goal, and we can get there if we're able to continue this effort. So there are a number of other projects like that are in progress that I want to make sure that we continue, and also for me, a big driver is doing what we can to meet the housing gap that exists in our community. We're thousands of units homes short from where we should be, and we're seeing people and young families priced out of home ownership as a result. That's something else we've started to take steps on. We've made record investments in that area with ARPA, but those investments, I think, have set us up for accelerated progress that I would like to see achieved.
Let's talk endorsements. Do you have any endorsements, and what are they?
Yes. So I'm extremely proud to have been endorsed by both the Springfield Police Officers Association and the International Association of Firefighters Local 152. So both our police and fire first responders, they are the ones who are doing the work of public safety on a daily basis. It takes extraordinary character to do a career where on a daily basis you have to be ready to rush into harm's way to protect somebody else. And I am incredibly thankful for the work that they do for our city. I'm incredibly thankful for their support. And I've always been, and I always will be, a strong supporter of both of our departments. And so those are endorsements that really mean a lot to me because I think public safety is such a key priority. We can't achieve our other goals for Springfield unless we have a safe city. And all of us deserve a safe place to live and work and spend time. And we can't have a safe city without the work of our police and fire officers, and so their support is very important to me. I've also been fortunate to be endorsed by United Springfield, which is, again, a nonpartisan organization of people who care about our community and want to make sure that we have people in leadership roles who are focused on our community's goals, not advancing their political careers, not advancing their personal interests, and making the best decisions, through collaborative, data-informed processes. And so that aligns with my approach to decision making, and I very much appreciate their support as well.
Over the past 2 years, there's been a lot of issues discussed by constituents at city council or things like that. In your perspective, what are two to three of the biggest issues that are impacting Springfield at the moment?
Public safety, I think, is always top of mind. We are, as with departments across the country, hiring for police officers right now is difficult, and we are not yet at full staffing. We have seen things that have helped, things we talked about, like the rehire program, changes made to the pension program, like increasing the starting pay for police officers and firefighters to be competitive, and we're going to be able to do that at a much greater level now with implementation of the Spring Forward tax, and also creative approaches like the co-responder program that we started, where a lot of the calls that police officers have to deal with may be related to mental health, and so being able to partner with Burl to have people there to deal with the mental health aspects, and so that's not work that we're pushing on our officers, and they can do other work that they need to do. I think those things all help, but the biggest thing, I think, is making sure we get to full staffing for our police department to address that, and that we continue as a community to also look at upstream solutions, to look at making sure we are providing programming for youth and keeping kids on the right track and giving them the opportunity of a great life, that we are addressing poverty, that we are addressing mental health and substance abuse challenges. Those are all things that are oftentimes kind of root causes of problems we see in terms of public safety, and being able to address them will make for a better community, will help people, again, to better lives, and will also help support the work of our police and firefighters. I think a second big thing that has been clear is the housing challenges. As we've talked about, we did a recent housing study that showed we were 14,000 homes short of where we should be in Springfield. We're continuing to grow in Springfield. We're a place that people want to live. People are moving here, and we're continuing to work to make it a better place to live for everyone who is here, which I think will drive that continued growth. But we need to make sure that people have good places to live, and so making sure that we have a community that has housing options at different types, at different price points for individuals, so that we keep that American dream and what I hope is the Springfield dream too of home ownership alive. Because right now I think it is challenged by the rising cost. And I was only an economics minor in college, but I do still remember from my macroeconomics class that if you have supply that is vastly lower than demand, as we do now with housing, prices are not going to go down. They're going to continue to go up, and we need to close that gap in order to address that issue. Then I think a third issue is economic opportunity, and I think that means that whether you're looking for a good job that's going to provide a strong wage for you and your family and benefits, or whether you're somebody who has an idea and who wants to start a business and is looking to do so here in Springfield, we want to be the place for economic opportunity, not just I think in our region, but in the state. So I want Springfield to be a place where people feel like they're able to have that path to a good life, whatever that path looks like for them. And I do have that. It's personal to me on both sides. Working at the college, being able to connect people to the skills that lead to those good jobs, and seeing the result, and seeing how happy people and families are at graduation. Those are tremendous moments. I've also had experience, starting a small business as a co-founder of 5 Pound Apparel with my brother, and seeing what it takes to have that idea and to actually make it a reality. And it's not an easy thing, and it's something that involves a lot of risk. But that's also something that if you do that and you succeed, you're creating jobs for others, you're contributing back to the community around you. And so I want Springfield to be a great place, whether you're working or starting a business or whatever form of economic opportunity you pursue.
Speaking of housing and economic opportunity, we have seen several occasions in the past, few years of developments, whether it's a housing development or, say, the Galloway Apartments that went to a city vote. The Chimney Hill thing is now being petitioned. And then you have economic vitality projects such as the National Sunshine Development. There were supposed to be businesses, which would, mean jobs. As somebody who you just pushed for more housing, more economic, vitality, how do you navigate those waters of addressing those concerns while also appeasing those who don't want them there?
That's a difficult challenge, and I think that's a challenge that is present when you're looking at any kind of change project. And it's most pronounced, I think, for people who are seeing change kind of nearby where they live, because that is where they live. It's an emotional stake, and people are understandably very passionate about those issues. I think it's our responsibility as a community to make sure that when we're looking at those types of changes or change processes, that everybody's voice is heard, that everybody has access to all the information that they should and that they want about decisions are being made, and that we are looking at all of the tangible concerns, things like stormwater infrastructure, things like impact on traffic, to make sure that a development on one person's property is not going to have a negative effect on somebody else's property. And that's a role of city government in terms of the regulation, the planning that goes along with those things. And those are things that we need to make sure that we are effectively doing our job as a city to address those concerns, and that we're making the necessary infrastructure improvements to continue to make those things better for everyone. At the same time, though, I think we also have to, when we're making these decisions, keep our mind on what are our goals as the community. What are the goals that we've set for SGF for where we want to be? Because it can become difficult. It's sometimes easier to talk about goals in a general sense than it is to look at kind of specific projects that would achieve those goals, because those specific projects do you have uncertainty for people who are not sure what it's going to look like. Do have things that people are concerned about. But if all we do is talk about and agree about the general goals, and we don't translate what we said we want as a community into how we approach decision making on individual projects, we're not going to make progress on those collective goals. And that can be very difficult. And I think that it's, again, our responsibility to make sure that we have processes that address all these concerns. We have processes that provide all the information, that are transparent, that we're always listening, and that we're always engaging everybody who's interested in the conversation. But then at the end of the day, that we're making those decisions based on what is in Springfield's best interest, and that we're very clear in terms of communicating kind of why those decisions are made and what the impact is going to be.
Another issue for City Council, it's already passed, you voted on it, was the expired license tag ordinance. And I'm sure you've heard both sides sitting at the council seat, people, property tax, dollars missing, lack of insured drivers, lack of registered drivers, and you have people that are economically impacted, considering it, quote unquote, a poor tax. Now, you voted to pass the ordinance. Given, I don't want to use the term backlash, it's been primarily on social media, but given the reaction by the public and kind of how divisive this issue is, do you stand by that vote, and if so, why?
So I do stand by that vote. I think that the principle behind that bill, and that was a bill kind of requested by Councilman Hosmer, and I think hopefully he'll be able for an interview to be able to talk about the impetus behind it as well. My approach to that bill is that this is a part of the responsibility of being a car owner. Is legally now you do have to make sure it's registered, and the registration process is a way to check to make sure you're meeting the other requirements, like holding insurance, like making sure that your property taxes on the car are paid. And those are all things that have an impact on the community around you. So if you're driving a car without insurance and you get into an accident, that's something that impacts the person that you're involved in the accident in. If you have a car that is over the mileage where it needs to be inspected every year and you're not going through the inspection process and equipment malfunction causes an issue, that's again something that can have very negative effects for those around you. So, I think the starting principle on this is that is something that is our responsibility as individuals when we own a car that we need to do. As far as this specific bill, it's not a bill that calls for mandatory towing on these cars. It's a bill that gave our police officers discretion to be able to use that if they felt it was appropriate for the situation. And that was important to me, that it was a discretionary item. I have full trust in our police officers that they are there to protect and serve the community. They're not there to try to be punitive. They're not there to try to penalize poverty, but they do want to make sure that they're doing their job to keep us safe, which includes the registration. And we've seen with past issues, for example, headlights being out. The police department actually worked to create a program, actually partnered with a national program, Lights On, to where if people have headlight or other equipment violations and they get pulled over, and if they're not in a position where they can pay, the officer is able to hand them a voucher to get that issue addressed. Our police officers are not there to try to get people tickets and fines. They're there to try to address the underlying issue. And so I have faith that they're not going to use this as a way that I think some people have feared, which is just a way to penalize those in poverty. Now, on the other hand, I think that is a real concern, and that was something that was a factor for me, kind of looking at the decision of making sure that we are emphasizing that is not the intention of this bill, and it's not the intention of this bill, and also that we are looking at how do we make sure that we are addressing some of the issues that can be created by this for people that truly can't afford the registration fees, and that's a bigger thing to challenge, and that's something I think we've been working on and need to continue to work on, where I think we need to make sure that we have a transportation system in Springfield, and we're continuing to make infrastructure investments that work well for people who have cars, but also work well for people who get around through other means, whether that's walking, whether that's biking, whether that's public transit. I think that's a way that we can help address some of the concerns that are associated with this. I think making sure that we are continuing to make that work to reduce poverty, and poverty has gone down significantly in the past several years, but we have a lot more progress to make, but making sure people aren't doing what we can to make sure people aren't in that situation where the financial challenges are preventing them from registering their car. I think housing ties into that as well, making sure people have affordable, good places to live, and that there are areas where people who either don't want to or can't afford a car can live somewhere where they can walk to work, where they can walk to get their groceries, walk to wherever they want to spend time. I think that's another way that we can and should continue to help address those issues. And so, both sides, I think, have very legitimate points. To me, it came down to this is a responsibility. It is something that protects our community to make sure cars are registered. And the bill that was passed is simply giving police officers another tool they can use in the right circumstances to achieve that goal. And ideally drive people coming in and addressing the issue voluntarily, which we have already heard from the county collector's office. There has been a huge uptick in people coming in and paying their late registration since that bill has passed. So, the best of those types of bills is one where a ticket never has to be written, because the impact of it is to get people to do what they need to do. And then on the other hand, we do need to make sure that we are aware in addressing the issues of poverty and transportation issues that can be created there.
My last question is, why should people vote for you?
So I would ask people to consider voting for me because first I think of being able to look at my track record. During my time on council, I have been working with others to be a strong and consistent supporter of public safety. You see that in the endorsement from the police and fire department. to be a strong and consistent supporter of making sure people have good places to live and promoting home ownership. As chair of the ARPA committee, we were able to make record investments into housing programs. We were able to fund housing study to kind of guide our future work in this area. We were also able to provide pilot funding for programs like Restore SGF, and also provide funding for community organizations like Springfield Community Land Trust. But Restore SGF is one that I'm especially excited about. The funding we've been able to provide for that has already helped both neighborhoods that are in need of revitalization have some investment. Through their neighborhood program, they're able to get neighbors together, provide funding for improvements to their houses. So it's not just one house on the block, that's getting a facelift and addressing needed maintenance concerns. It's the whole neighborhood, and that makes a tremendous difference in quality of life for the people that live there. But it's also provided a down payment assistance program, and we've heard from individuals and families who have been able to use that down payment assistance program to purchase a home who would not have been able to otherwise, and are now, have a long-term kind of investment in our community. And those are also great stories to get to hear and be able to have been able to be a part of kind of working towards providing the funding to have those sorts of outcomes is incredibly rewarding. I think you can also talk to those that I've kind of served with on council and other community partners that I've worked with. And what I would hope that they would tell you is that I'm someone who is always focused on collaborating, focused on working together, again, with the goal of doing what is best for our community, and always being willing to do the work, to do the research, to have the conversations, to do the analysis that's necessary to get to those good outcomes. I think that being able to keep the promises on the Spring Forward tax initiative that we passed last November is another reason I would ask people to consider voting for me. That's something that I was heavily involved in bringing to voters. We saw the strong voter approval, and thanks to that voter approval, I think that we have the opportunity to make the next 4 years in Springfield some of the best 4 years that we've had as a community. But we have to keep our promises to voters, and we have to spend the money in the most effective way. And I think that my experience, my involvement in that, sets me up well to be a part of achieving, of working with others on council to achieve that for our communities. So, I think that I always believe in kind of being very clear and kind of direct about where I stand and my priorities, and that I'm driven by those priorities that we see set by the community and for SGF. But I'm also a believer that actions speak much louder than words. I think that, again, my track record on those issues, what it's translated to in terms of endorsements and support from police and fire and United Springfield and others who are intimately involved in this work and care about the future of our community. I'd ask others to let me kind of finish to support me again to finish the job. And I know that together, if we're able to keep working, we're going to be able to accomplish even more great things for the city we all love.